me go ahead and respond?
Okay.
Okay. In response to what you just said, it is true. If anyone denies that Peter has perpetual successors, they are indeed outside of the church. But once again, unless you can demolish, which you can't, the teaching of invincible ignorance, since you can't even deal with the biblical text, and in fact you abuse it, you can't deal with the term two-floyd, and as such, I think your arguments are worthless. If you actually show me where the biblical term two-floyd is rescinded, the term for ignorance is rescinded, them being blind, then maybe your arguments would have some validity to them. But it is a biblical truth that an individual can be ignorant to the truth, or even to the fullness of the truth, and as such, it would be irresponsible to label an individual a heretic. And once more, it would be going against Titus 3, John 9, and as such, to claim that an individual is in sin, I simply I don't understand where you would be getting, where you can claim such authority to call somebody a sinner. And even if you realize that an individual is ignorant to the truth, you would still label them as a heretic and a sinner, and as one that has no opportunity whatsoever of being saved. And as such, we can tell your interpretation of Revelation, Titus, John. Each time you attempt to deal with the biblical text, it really is your enemy. I mean, you're able to quote all these papal documents and doctrines of the church, and as such, all you're really doing is reading into them, of course. But when it comes to the biblical text, I guess maybe you haven't studied that enough to be able to read into it. You seem to be completely lost. And maybe you need to do a little bit more studying on the what invincible ignorance just is. And I guess if you examine it and you come to an understanding of Titus 3, we can see how illogical and how out of line and out of the biblical norm it would be to label the individuals that you labeled heretics as heretics. Completely goes against the biblical and historical Catholic mandate.
Well, yeah, according to your heretical understanding of invincible ignorance, Protestants who attack Catholic teaching and study it to try to refute it could be in good faith, and Jews who've heard of Christ but maybe aren't convinced of him could be in good faith. And so you, frankly, have taken a heretical understanding of invincible ignorance to its apostate conclusion, and I already quoted all kinds of things on ignorance, how there's certain mysteries of faith which you must know and believe to be saved. And according to you, St. Robert Bellarmine was completely in the dark on the biblical text because he directly contradicts your completely false and irrelevant rehashing of your misunderstanding of Titus 3:10. According to him, he doesn't know what he's talking about either. And according to you. And also, all of this about invincible ignorance is completely irrelevant to the point we're talking about, because we're talking about Eastern, quote, Orthodox patriarchs who know of Catholic teaching, who meet with the anti-pope. They meet with him. They pray with him. They are friends with him. Okay? So, again, your attempt to exonerate them because they have, quote, invincible ignorance, it's insane. They're not ignorant of Catholic teaching. Even if you were going to try to admit of that concept, which your teaching on it is heretical, they're not ignorant. And he says he loves their church, he loves their ministry, they're blessed, they're great piety, they're in the church, they're pastors in the Church of Christ, they don't have to accept Vatican I, and on and on and on. He does not believe that they need to accept the Catholic faith. That's a fact. Anyone who denied is a liar. Do you know how much time I have?
30 seconds. And
getting back to some of the other heresies on Islam, the Church teaches that Islam is a diabolical religion. Okay, that was taught by Pope Calixtus III. Pope Eugene IV said it's an abominable sect. These guys say it's good. Benedict XVI address, December 22nd, 2006. My visit to Turkey afforded me the opportunity to show also publicly my respect for the Islamic religion, a respect, moreover, which the Second Vatican Council pointed out to us. That is heresy, and he's saying that that's the teaching of Vatican II. That alone would prove he's an apostate. He calls the Koran a holy book. He says he respects it. So,
want to go ahead and respond now?
Yeah, and then maybe I'll respond one more, and then did you want to move to closing statements?
Yeah, I guess, you can respond one more time, and then I guess,
unless you wanted to go on a little bit longer.
If I could get the opportunity to, I don't know if it would be fair if I could at least respond last, since you're going to be spoke first and you're going to be speaking last. Would that be all right with you?
No, because you agreed in advance that I would speak last.
No, you're missing what I'm saying. I'm talking about if I would be able to respond last, and then I can do my closing, you can speak last. I'm not talking about speaking last. I agree you're going to be speaking last. Like, in other words, we're doing 2-minute responses. Maybe I can do the final 2-minute response, and I can close, and then you can close. I can give you more time if you'd like as well. It doesn't really matter.
Okay, well, maybe you could... Yeah, you did ask the first question, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And so I don't know who asked the last question, but...
I think you asked the last one.
All right, fine. If you want to respond, and then we'll go to closing statements. You
want to do that right now?
Or...
You wanted to respond a couple more times?
Okay, we'll respond a couple more times.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, I'll start already then. All right. Going into what you're saying about St. Robert Bellarmine, Bellarmine actually goes against what you're teaching. He actually says, this is quoting the exact portion you quoted, "For in the first place, it is proven with arguments from authority and from reason that the manifest heretic is ipso facto deposed." Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, I heard a lot of static. Manifest heretic is ipso facto deposed. The argument from authority is based on St. Paul. Then he quotes, he points out Titus 3. And then he says, "Who orders that a heretic be avoided after 2 warnings, that is, after showing himself to be manifestly obstinate, which means before any excommunication or judicial sentence." This is a clear understanding of the text, and I completely agree with what Bellarmine is saying, as one definitely a heretic, and indeed, if we examine the biblical text, we find the usage of heretic being labeled. He's actually called a heretic because, as to being admonished, he continues being obstinate. And one is a heretic after they've been warned twice. Indeed, the biblical text is whether it says once or twice, really the Greek here is deuteros, and it can be numerous times. It's just merely showing that a person that is confronted numerous times, which is a message that is attempting to clarify, and that individual continues being obstinate, as Bellarmine said, this individual should be warned. And as such, this really goes against anything that you've been saying the whole time. You say you don't need to give any warnings. You don't need to confront any individual, or you basically can abandon the model of Titus 3, and you can label anybody a manifest heretic. And as such, I think your arguments are silly. The way you read into Robert Bellarmine is simply abusive, and I can't really support any of the logical readings. And I really don't think you can handle any of the fathers, doctors, or the biblical text in a logical manner.
Yeah. Okay, my response, yeah, well, I mean, you've proven yourself to just be totally dishonest. What you're saying is so stupid. He says, it is proven with arguments from authority and from reason that the manifest heretic is ipso facto deposed. That means by that very fact. The argument from authority is based on St. Paul, Titus 3:10, who orders that the heretic be avoided after 2 warnings, that is, after showing himself to be manifestly obstinate, which means before any excommunication or judicial sentence. So he understands the 2 warnings to mean showing himself to be obstinate, showing himself to know of Catholic teaching, and rejects it, okay? It's not saying any official warning. That's why he says before any excommunication or judicial sentence. That's the official warning. That's the official proclamation. That's the official judgment. So he understands what St. Paul means when he says, after 2 warnings, he says that is, after showing himself to be obstinate. And Benedict XVI's obstinate, of course. He knows of Vatican I. He's read it. He knows of the Council of Florence. He's read it. I've read 25 of his books. He's very familiar with these teachings. And in Principles of Catholic Theology, he specifically says that the maximum demand of the Catholic Church on the Orthodox would be that they submit to the definition of Vatican I in 1870. Okay? And he says, but none of the maximum solutions offers any real hope of unity. That's not the way to unity, according to him, for them to accept Vatican I. So he's blatantly rejecting Vatican I. He's showing himself to be manifestly obstinate. Okay? He knows of Catholic teaching, and he rejects it. And that is also why, as I said, their esteeming of false religions is utter apostasy. They not only esteem the members of false religions, they esteem and respect the religions themselves constantly. Do you know how much time I have?
7 seconds.
And so, your turn.
Okay.